And we are live. Welcome, mystery and thriller fans. I'm your on-air host, Sara DiVello, and I am thrilled, pun intended, to be here today with the incredible Elle Marr, who's joining us all the way from across the country in Portland to tell us about her red-hot new book, Lies We Bury. Elle, welcome to Mighty Mysteries. Tell us about your book.
Wow, what an incredible introduction. Thank you for that, Sara. I am so happy to be here. Lies We Bury is my new release. It released last week, April 1st, and I'm super excited to share it with readers. It's my second thriller, and it's set in Portland, Oregon, and it takes its inspiration from true crime headlines.
Ooh, true crime. I am here for it. Who else? I know we have a lot of true crime fans in the audience. Give us some hands up in the comments if you love true crime as much as I do. So I just want to pause really quickly and welcome everyone who's watching us on Facebook. So I'll be monitoring right over here on my second screen. If you've been here before, you know how it works. And if you're new, welcome. We're so thrilled to have you. Here's how it works. Every Tuesday, I present you with two fabulous, fascinating authors in our favorite genre of mystery and thrillers, and you get to ask them anything. So you can ask Elle about her writing, about her book, about her inspiration, about her process. What happens on Mighty Mysteries stays on Mighty Mysteries. So go ahead and get those questions going in the comments. And I see Georgina Cross, bestselling author, is already with us. Welcome, Georgina. And actually,
Hi, Georgina.
You have a fabulous event coming up on Thursday with Georgina. Tell us about that.
Yes, I do. I'm so excited for it. It is a launch event to celebrate the release of Lies We Bury. It's hosted by local Portland bookstore, Two Rivers Bookstore. It's going to be at 6:30 PST, 9:30 EST, and 8:30 Central. And Georgina and I are going to be in conversation about Lies We Bury and all kinds of other stuff relating to writing and publishing. And I'll be giving away a signed copy of Lies We Bury to someone who asks a question there.
Ooh, I love questions and I love signed copies. That sounds like a fabulous, fabulous event. So everyone be sure to check that out and join. Who doesn't love signed copies of books? So that will be fantastic. Welcome, Judy. Great to have you here. Great to have you back. So if anyone has any questions, just go ahead and get those going. Meanwhile, I have got to share a few words of praise that this book has earned because, my God, you are blazing up the charts, woman. So, Elle, you earned a starred review from Kirkus, and that don't come cheap. I think the New York Times called them reliably cantankerous and curmudgeonly, but they awarded you a starred review, and they said this is a deep, deep dive into unspeakable memories and their unimaginably shocking legacy. I am here for it. Publishers Weekly said the suspenseful plot is matched by the convincing portrayal of the vulnerable Claire, who just wants to lead a normal life. Marr is a writer to watch. Yes. Booklist also loved it, saying that Marr's own voices trust no one thriller unravels with horrifying then interruptions, producing a jolting creepfest of twisted revenge. Wow. I could go on, and I will, but I want to pause there and talk about this praise. So, Elle, what do you think the secret is to writing a trust no one thriller which produces a jolting creepfest of twisted revenge? How do you do it?
Wow, that's a great question. I am still getting the hang of it. My theory is that it should entice you as the author and maybe scare you even as much as you hope it will scare or entice readers. I'm the kind of person that I turn a dark corner and I think, what could be behind that dark corner? What am I about to encounter? And so I constantly play this little game with myself where I'm imagining this other scenario that might happen, and I just keep amping it up in my head. And writing a thriller is kind of like that for me. What would cause me to turn the page as a reader? I try to write as a reader first, and then hopefully produce that for the readers themselves, try and write a page that makes the reader want to continue forward, and hopefully quickly.
I love that. So you write as a reader first. Tell us more about what you mean by that.
Yeah, just in the sense that I think it comes down to trusting yourself as an author or a writer. So often we get caught up in, anybody gets caught up in another person's praise or acceptance or rejection of you, and especially when you're creating art and then present it to the world. And I think it's important to remember to trust ourselves as authors, and remember that we are readers at heart, or at least I am definitely, and to know that it's your first impression counts. And if you are creative and if you are passionate about something, then other people may be passionate about your ideas also.
Exactly. Alan is saying you seem awesome. We totally agree. Anissa is saying, giving you hearts. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Anissa, top community member. We are loving this conversation so far. Thank you. So tell us, Elle, when you say that you go around dark corners and you think, what's the worst that could happen? Does your mind ever go blank, or do you just have a super fertile imagination? Teach me your ways, woman. Teach me your ways.
Ooh, I definitely have a fertile imagination. I don't think my mind ever goes blank, probably because I watched too much cable as a child. I just have too many things already fermenting in there for decades on end. I definitely think, we are, at one point or another during this last year, we've been in lockdown, whether you are right now or you're just coming out of it. And so there's been a lot of time to sit and think, I think. And I've had a lot of ideas just kind of bubble up, and then hopefully, as I said, ferment from there. I've been writing down ideas for my next book, and that's generally how I write as well. Back to one of your original questions, I think about things that grab my attention, I write them down, and then when I go to write another story, I choose from among those little phrases or ideas that I've jotted down, and think, what do I want to spend the next 6 months with? And hopefully something clicks.
Ooh, I love that. So how many of these little notes do you have? Are we talking stacks?
If they were written out physically, they would absolutely be stacks. Luckily, I have my notes app on my phone, and so it's just, you have to scroll, and scroll. And I'm not saying they're all good ideas, by the way. They're just ideas.
Elle's finger is getting a workout as she scrolls and scrolls through her fabulous ideas. I love that. Anissa is saying, "Yay, creepfest!" I loved that review as well. How do you allow yourself to go to these dark places, and do they stay with you?
Absolutely. I don't think that I won't say that I have to go to these dark places. I think they kind of live around us. I think if you're paying attention and you're, walking down the street at night, there's an element of like the hair creeping up on the back of your neck. No matter who you are, I think, wondering, again, what's around that corner, or is that a lamppost up ahead with a bulb burned out, or is that a person waiting, slender and hiding in the shadows? Our minds do that probably as a result of watching too many movies, like I said, or cable, like I did as a child. But we have that, I think, and it's suppressing that allows us to, live our lives normally and socially appropriately. But I think if we don't freak out in public usually, but I think if we subdue that part of ourselves, that etiquette part of ourselves, and allow ourselves to go there, I think it's there for everyone. You just have to tap into it.
Exactly. Okay. I know I want to fly to Oregon right now and take a walk with Elle as we take an evening stroll with Elle as we look at lampposts. And I just want her to narrate the walk. Who wants to go with us? Get us
Terrifying.
In the comments. I am loving this conversation. So Vanessa Lilly, who has also appeared on the show, bestselling author Vanessa Lilly, I'm going to just pop this up briefly because it's covering our faces, said your book is dark and compelling. You've written another atmospheric and twisted thriller. So how do you think, how do you capture the atmosphere? I mean, how do you accurately describe that in a way that is so compelling?
First of all, that's such a compliment from Vanessa Lilly. I think she's such an amazing author, especially with her books, Little Voices and For the Best. I definitely try to balance the both, dark and compelling. I try to write twisty, dark thrillers because I think I love reading thrillers myself. And I think that's what usually really captures my mindset and just allows me to flip through pages quickly, voraciously. But at the same time, I try to balance that with a sense of optimism. And I hope that readers see that. There is in both of my books, The Missing Sister and Lies We Bury, there's a through line of optimism, but it is, entrenched, hidden sometimes, within the dark and twisty turns. For me, it's all about balance. I like to feel an emotional resonance with stories, and I try to emulate that in my books. I try to recreate that as best I can.
I love that. I love that. Another of our previous guests, the bestselling author, Kimberly Belle, also rave review. This is a twisted mashup of room and a murder mystery. Lies We Bury is a story that creeps into your bones. So I know we've all had that experience where we're laying awake at night and we actually feel ourselves being affected. And that's something that's always fascinated me, because I try to tell myself at 3 a.m. when I can't sleep and I get up and I check out that all the windows and the doors are still locked. This is just a book, Sara. This is just the pages of a book. There's nobody out there. And I've actually noticed as an author myself, it's hard to write fear without sounding cheesy or overblown or actually not that scary, or, comedic. What do you think? How do you reach through the pages and terrify people? What do you think the secret is?
I mean, that's such a good question. And I feel like I'm getting closer to that solid answer with each book that I write. And also, what a compliment from Kimberly Belle. I love her stories. I love her books. I was so pleased that she had such nice things to say. So thank you, Kimberly, wherever you are.
Yes.
I think for me, it's about really trying to, I picture these moments when I'm trying to create an atmosphere of fear in these scenes. I really picture these moments and what my characters are doing and how they might be feeling viscerally. I try to sit in their mindset and then describe how my body feels.
Ooh,
so it's definitely, it's putting on my, my really big imagination cap, trying to go to these, places physically. And then I try to enhance that with my words as best I can with, our set of tools, our words, and hopefully it turns out.
Well, clearly it is turning out, because this praise is absolutely incredible by authors who are so well respected, who are legends in the genre. And also, right before we logged on, the incredible Luann Rice, who was on last week, New York Times bestselling author of 36 novels, tweeted that you are one of her favorite authors to be in conversation with. What an incredible compliment. I mean, your work is wowing people. So amazing. You're doing it. You're doing it now.
Yeah, she's amazing. Luann Rice is such an amazing author, and then just such a generally lovely friend. I had the opportunity to be in conversation with her a few weeks back for her launch of The Shadow Box, which is her most recent release. And oh my gosh, she's just incredible.
She really is. Oh, comment from Facebook coming up. Judy saying, I think young women have to think defensively walking down the street. It's sad that we need to scare the bejesus out of ourselves to feel safe. Judy is an incredible, well-respected mental health professional, a therapist of 35 years. So when she's saying that, it really does mean something. And that's so true.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's exactly the place that I go to in my novels. It's not, like I said earlier, it's not that we have to imagine ourselves in these situations. It's really that we have to just open our eyes and look around us sometimes and tap into those, I guess, primordial instincts that we have to be on the lookout, to look over our shoulder and maybe, dangle our car keys in our hand and use it maybe, or, wield it potentially as a weapon. That's exactly that's the place that I got my inspiration from for Lies We Bury. Lies We Bury is based on, an amalgam of true crime headlines regarding survivors of false imprisonment. My main character, Marissa Mo, is 2 decades from escaping the basement prison in which she was born. And she's trying to move past that trauma to make a life for herself as a news photographer in Portland, Oregon, when someone begins goading her and leaving clues from her past at these crime scenes. And so I really wanted to explore the initial trauma, the horrifying situation of false imprisonment, but then from the survivor's perspective of 2 decades on, and to just explore the idea of trauma and how we move past that, or whether we choose not to. And it's all rooted in what, women have to, these questions that women have to pose themselves on a daily basis of, it's okay to walk to my car at this particular time of day or night. Do I need someone to escort me? Why should I have to have someone escort me? But then, is it a practical thing to do anyway? Nonetheless, do I not feel safe? So these are all questions that I really explore in Lies We Bury, and that sadly, might resonate with a lot of different women who are reading.
I I'm so glad you're bringing this up because I wanted to talk about this today as a true crime junkie and as someone who likes to reach understanding, who cannot, in fact, move forward until she has reached understanding. Your main character of someone who has been born into captivity, of course, reminded me of the stories that we've all seen in the news where people have been held and have had to give birth in captivity. And I have always wondered how both the kidnap victim and their child does overcome this. And so for you to go into that place, what was your research like?
I read a fair amount of books by survivors of those situations. This is one of those ideas that I wrote down a long time ago that just stayed with me. And I found myself, looking into these various cases, these incidents that, captivated everyone's attention globally for a certain period of time. But then people tended to move on. They allowed the survivors to grow and reclaim their lives, which is what I really felt was so, that's what we should be emphasizing about these situations, not discussing the perpetrators, but really emphasizing the strength and resilience of these women and these, survivors of these horrifying situations. And that's another thing that I really wanted to highlight in this book, not just to explore the idea of false imprisonment, being held in captivity, which is, true crime through and through. It's horrifying and very, compelling to a lot of people. But I also really wanted to explore the idea of the most important part of this, which is that she survived. These women, these survivors moved on, and that was a part of their lives that is no longer the focus of their lives. They have greater things to do.
Exactly.
That's part of the optimism that I try to write in my stories, even though it might not seem that way initially.
No, I love that because I actually was just watching the Tina Turner documentary this week. Of course, Tina being famously a domestic violence survivor. And what I did not know and what I learned from this documentary is that she tried very hard to not talk about that anymore after she survived that, after she left Ike, after she divorced him, after she had this incredible megastar, I think 185 city tour of her own at the age of 50. I mean, she's amazing. And one thing that the documentary really focused on is that instead of, and this is again 30 years ago, I hope we wouldn't see this now, but what we saw in the documentary is that in all of the interviews, the journalists wanted to say, let's talk about your pain. And they wanted to sort of profit off of a Black woman's pain, a woman's pain, and a Black woman's pain, and her horror and her trauma and her pain, this violent experience that she had been through. And she kept saying, oh, we have to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. But I think 30 years ago wasn't in a position to say, I'm not talking about that,
right.
Period, full stop. I'm here to talk about me, the other, the human, the singer, the amazing, and I'm
my work.
Yes, exactly. This whole other part of herself, which is the entirety of herself instead of this one part of herself.
Exactly.
And so I love that you differentiate that and talk about that, because I think we see a lot of that in our, still in our culture is, wanting to talk about him, about the perpetrator instead of them and their survival. We need to shift the light.
Sarah, we could talk about this all day. I 100% agree with you. I'm right there. I'm here for it. It's too frequently, and I think there's some shifting going on in our mentality as a consumer society, as we're consuming headlines, and then how the media is then portraying these incidents and especially these perpetrators. But for so long, it's really been about, the headlines have been about the perpetrator themselves, the criminal or the assailant, instead of stories of these these survivors when they're ready to share their stories or when they're ready to share their identities. It's been a kind of a culture, a strange culture of like highlighting the perpetrators themselves, and then debating so many things about the situation, motivations, etc. When really we don't need to talk about them. Who cares about them? They're the least exciting thing about any story of survival. It's really about the people who have come out of these situations demonstrating resilience and strength far greater than anything that those perpetrators could have had. I'll
Exactly.
get off my soapbox.
No, it's so true. And actually, last year, my friend Stephanie Ebert, who is a reporter for the Boston Globe, wrote this investigative story about the women who had been victims of human trafficking when the owner of the New England Patriots football team, was caught, being a client of certain massage parlors in Florida. And
Right.
they were not talking about the women. They were only talking about him. They hadn't even named them. They hadn't even given them the dignity of a name. And it's like, this has been how our culture has been, is male focused and focused on him instead of on her. And I'm happy to see that shift, and it's finally happening. So
Yeah.
thank you for
I couldn't
taking
agree
that
more.
on. Thank you
Yeah,
for
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you for that. Thank you for the applause, Liana. Margaret chiming in, saying the atmosphere of fear discussion is making me think of the difference between terror, fear of the unknown, and horror, disgust at depravity. Oh my God, Margaret, you're blowing my mind right now. Does Elle include both in our books? I've never thought about that difference before. Elle, what are your thoughts?
Oh, wow. That's so interesting. The difference between terror and horror. I think, obviously the two are related. Absolutely. I think terror for me is the more subtle of the two, in the sense that terror can be, I feel like terror can just creep into every cell of your body and really demonstrate itself in every part of your body, and express itself in so many different ways. And I think horror is slightly a louder, a more vocal cousin to terror. That's just in my personal off the cuff interpretation, but I definitely strive to articulate both in my books. That's an interesting question. That's a really great question. Sarah, what do you think?
You know what? I've never thought about this before. Margaret is also an author and a member of our Mighty Blaze team. So leave it to an author to ask the
I was going to say
question. Margaret, you're amazing.
An amazing question.
Yeah. I actually, Margaret, thank you for this. I had never considered the different kinds of terror. I didn't actually realize that there was, thank you for these definitions, a difference between terror and a difference between horror. And this is actually going to be really helpful for me as a lens for me as a reader to look at these books differently, and for me as a writer to write these books differently. So thank you for this incredibly thought-provoking, conversation starting, mind invigorating question. I'm getting a brain massage from Margaret. Thank you. Thank you. I'm loving this. I'm just making sure I'm not missing any comments here. Elle, let me ask you this. What is one thing that you want to leave people with when they walk away from the hours that they've spent, the many pages that they spent with you? What do you want them to leave feeling? You said an element of hope, a focus on women and their truth, their story. Anything else you want people to walk away with?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thanks for asking it. I definitely think, I'm a big believer that once you create your art and you release it to the world, it's the consumers, it's the readers. They can interpret it however they'd like, of course. I'm hopeful that readers end my books and they feel a sense of the optimism that I try to imbue there. And at the same time, that they had a great time. First and foremost, I hope that it's an entertaining read. And I hope it passed, quickly, or at least they savored the story. I do think for Lies We Bury, I hope that readers leave Lies We Bury with the sense that family is not necessarily the people that, resemble you. It might be the family that you share blood with. It might not, but family can take on a lot of different forms. And really, we should hold those relationships close when possible.
Oh, I love that. And I totally agree. Thank you for that eloquent and hopeful answer. That's really lovely. Margaret is saying that she can do terror and thrillers and vibrate visibly while reading. I'm picturing her shivering and shivering under the covers. But she can't do horror books. That is fair.
That's fair.
Elle, what are some of your favorite books to read? Who are your favorite authors?
I will just really quickly say I can't do a lot of horror either. I will say I accidentally stumbled on Stephen King's alter ego, Richard Bachman, when I was 11, and it was horror. It was absolute horror. I learned a lot as a young child, and also discovered I love reading, no matter the genre. I love all kinds of books. I read cross genre. There's that tricky catch-22 is once you're a writer, you must be a reader, and you don't have a lot of time to read, but you still must make time to read in order to keep advancing as a writer. I am currently reading, I read a couple of different books at a time. A.H. Kim's A Good Family, which is just a fantastic suspense. And then also reading Georgina Cross's The Missing Woman. I saw. Both are just amazing. And Georgina Cross's The Missing Woman, I'm tearing through it now. And I also read her debut, The Stepdaughter, earlier, which was another fantastic read.
Oh, I love that. Thanks for the recommendations. That's fantastic. Once again, I just want to remind everyone that Elle is doing an event with Georgina Cross Thursday night at 6:30 Pacific, 9:30 Eastern, and giving away a signed copy of her book, Lies We Bury. So this book is blazing up the charts, so you will want to grab that. All right, we have 5 minutes left. We are entering the lightning round. So let's get those questions going. All right, Anissa is up. Oops, sorry, clicked the wrong one. Anissa is up. If you were to genre hop, where would you hop to and why? I'm kind of liking this Easter Bunny theme. Where would you hop to, Elle?
That's a great question. I love writing thriller, suspense. I love it. I really enjoy writing it as much as I enjoy reading it. But if I were to genre hop, I think I might dip into literary fiction. I feel like I actually have an idea just kind of sitting in the back of my head for one day in the future, one day. So I might be literary fiction, might be some book club lit fic.
I love this. So fun fact about Elle, she graduated from UC San Diego and then moved to France where she attended the Sorbonne. Ooh la la. So we're seeing a sophistication, très chic, literary thread running through your past, Ms. Marr. So we will look forward to seeing this. Someone's saying that you live with your husband, son, and one demanding feline. We're going to need to see some cat pics. We're going to need everyone. We have Kimberly, my partner in crime, my amazing partner in crime today, has put the links to follow Elle on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram. So are there cat pics? We need to know, Elle. Are there cat pics?
Earlier cat pics. I think last year. I need to post more pictures of my kitty. She's very patient.
We need more kitty pics, kitty and book pics. Margaret saying she loves this question and such fun answers. I totally agree.
Oh, thank you.
Yay. Also, she loves I didn't even notice. We are coordinated.
We are.
That was intentional. I mean, we're just taking it to the next level here on Mighty Mysteries.
We're very dedicated.
Oh, would it be too much to send a uniform request to future guests and we actually match? We're twinning.
No, I think you should do it.
Fantastic. Elle, any advice for aspiring writers? What did you wish you knew before you started?
I was told this, but I ignored it.
Tell us.
I was told this. Don't query too early. Don't query too early. Make sure your manuscript is ready. I would say, even if you're dying for feedback from your dream agent or publisher, just sit with your book, sit with your manuscript, and try not to query too early. I would also say, this touched on something I said earlier, don't forget to trust yourself as a reader first when you're writing. When I was querying too early, I would find myself reading my manuscript and being like, I'll fix this later. And then sending it out anyway, and then getting the feedback that exact thing needed to be fixed. So that shows you I'm a little bit on the stubborn side. It takes me a second to absorb certain feedback, but you should definitely remember to trust yourself. That's my advice.
Elle, that actually gives me a question. This is something that I really wrestle with as an author, is knowing when and how to trust myself versus when I'm being stuck in ego and when to take feedback. Thoughts on that?
I think the numbers are definitely a good indicator. If you're receiving the same feedback from multiple sources, especially if they don't know each other, you probably need to consider it at the very least. Maybe not change it, but definitely weigh it heavily and then see where that critique is coming from.
And what about the timing? Because I think so many, it's interesting because I think so many of us, Kimberly and I were just talking about this earlier this week, actually, we wait and we wait and we wait and we don't send it out. And then others of us send it out prematurely. And it's so hard to find that balance of, of knowing when it has been polished to perfection. It's time to let it go already, versus when you're like, just one more round. So how did you find that balance?
For me, it was about, I had that same conversation with myself for the 3 years that I was writing my debut, The Missing Sister. For me, it was really about, I just had this gut feeling that I needed to keep working on it and just keep refining my manuscript. So I think that goes back to trusting yourself and really knowing, your manuscript best, your story best, and determining whether or not you've taken it the farthest that it can before sending to someone, before submitting. I really think it's about being honest with yourself as well.
Ooh, oh, I love that. Being honest with yourself. Yes to that. Speaking of The Missing Sister, just going to pop this up really quickly. Missing Sister was number 24 bestselling ebook of 2020 on Amazon, a number 1 Amazon bestseller, number 1 in the Kindle store, featured in Women's World and named Pop Sugar 31 Thrillers of 2020. Amazing work on that, Elle. So again, you are just on fire. So congratulations.
Thank you for that.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. It looks like we are out of time. I just realized it. We could be chatting away because this is so freaking great.
It was.
Elle, thank you so much for coming on. Everybody follow Elle on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, whatever your pleasure. She does it all, and she'll post some cat pics. So get up on it. Elle, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been a fabulous pleasure hosting you. And I love the content and the quality of our conversation. I love the balance of optimism and truth, focus on women's stories. This has been just such a wonderful time. So thank you so much. And please come back when your next book is out.
My absolute pleasure. I would love to. Thank you so much, Sarah, for asking such amazing questions, and everyone in the chat that joined. Thank you so much for joining us. I love speaking with a mighty blaze, so thank you so much for having me.
Yay. And thanks again to my partner in crime, Kimberly Hensel-Lawrence.
Yes, Kimberly, thank you.
Been blazing it up here on the production side. Kimberly, you're amazing. Thank you. Everybody, we will see you next time right here on Mighty Mysteries at 4:00, coming up with Sally Hepworth live from Australia. Megan, Margaret, thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day. We'll see you soon.